or you don't realize the game has changed, you're still fighting yesterday's war, you're fighting them to take their supporters away and bring them to you, I think that could be fatal to your standing. I don't think it's what public opinion in South Africa wants. I don't think it's particularly constructive. And I don't think opposition parties fighting each other to the death leads to a reform government in 2024. It leads to the opposite.
South Africa's opposition parties need to be nicer to each other. This was an argument that we at the Centre for Risk Analysis made in a client webinar hosted towards the end of last year. What follows is a short extract from this webinar. Enjoy. John, I wanted to turn a question from Tariq to you about the DA. What do you think about the DA's future over the next couple of years? Do you think the party has reached a ceiling? Incidentally, in our call before the elections, we predicted 22% for the DA at the aggregate level, and that was in fact what they got. So by all accounts, they would be fairly disappointed. But perhaps in this new era of coalitions, they're going to be playing an outsized role as the largest opposition party. So not altogether a gloomy picture for them, and they've obviously gotten these new jewels in the crown with the various metros. How long they'll be able to hold on to those is another question. But overall, how do you see the prospects of the DA in this environment, John?
I think in a way, we are in a new environment now, a new political environment, and the DA is as well. And what it calls for, I think, from political parties in the opposition specifically, is a lot more focus on specific constituencies. My sense is that it doesn't matter so much if the DA itself goes up or down. What matters is what happens to the broader coalition front. And what the broader coalition front needs to do is to serve a variety of constituencies with targeted messages for members of those constituencies. And I think that the DA has the opportunity now to, it doesn't need to be a broad church anymore necessarily. It doesn't have to become the big lion that takes down the old buffalo. It can afford to be one member of the wild dog pack, and that is fine. There will be other dogs running alongside it, working towards the same goal, each serving a different constituency, but sharing a common purpose, which is to introduce a political change that makes a priority out of things like property rights, like the rule of law, for example, like accountability, like non-racialism. And I think as long as the DA finds itself in the midst of such a grouping, it will be well positioned no matter what results it gets in elections.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
Currently, I think it is certainly the dominant member of that group, and by virtue of its size. But of course, it also has to be sociable. Wild dogs are sociable animals. It doesn't really work out well for the loners. And it is, I think, incumbent upon the DA to understand this and to know that by itself, it is not going to take down the buffalo. It needs to work together with the pack. It needs to be in cooperation with them, and also to address the needs that members of the pack have, and not only look out for its own needs.
And Frans, you've spoken about this potentially large untapped market of socially conservative, mostly black voters who may not have found a political home elsewhere. Do you think that necessarily the Action SA movement around Herman Mashaba represents something of the nascent beginnings of that? Could they be playing a significant role in the future of South African politics?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, public opinion sits centre-right in South Africa, always has, and the ANC in the GEAR era, remember, it was a party that governed with a budget surplus. It was centre-right. It then lurched radically far to the left, and support began to collapse, which continues. So the market is wide open, and I think ASA is positioned for that potentially. But it's not the only party. It's the DA is very much there. It's a longer, much older, of course, than ASA. It's always been around there. The Freedom Front is there. The ACDP is there. I think Bantu Holomisa and the UDM has potential there. Patricia de Lille certainly has potential to come in there as well. Gayton McKenzie and his PA could slot in to that. And in Carter, depending on what it becomes now, it's a bit volatile, could slot in there too. And that's important, because I think that's how opposition parties in South Africa should start to see themselves. The game has changed after this election. Success for opposition parties is no longer how many more votes did I get for myself. Of course, they must compete with each other. That's a line to measure. But the real bottom line is, how did our party find a way to work with others to the center and the center right to bring about a reformist government in South Africa? And that does not require only maxing out the total number of votes you can get. The real political maturity would now be to understand that a chap who votes for ASA or for the DA or for the Freedom Front, for whatever secondary reasons they do so, primarily are saying they want a change in how South Africa is governed. Broadly, they agree with the idea of a market economy, property rights, and the rule of law, effective empowerment policies, and so on. And I think they expect of their political leaders and the parties they voted for the ability to be able to pool that collective sense to bring about a reformist government. So, yeah, the market is wide open. Herman Mashaba is an important part of that market. He's done terribly well in some constituencies, but he's certainly not alone there. And I can go back to your previous question and say success now for any opposition leader or party is going to have to be measured in how did you work with the others to bring about reform. If you're a loner and you're not willing to do that, or you don't realize the game has changed, you're still fighting yesterday's war, you're fighting them to take their supporters away and bring them to you, I think that could be fatal to your standing. I don't think it's what public opinion in South Africa wants. I don't think it's particularly constructive. And I don't think opposition parties fighting each other to the death leads to a reform government in 2024. It leads to the opposite. So the benchmark now of success, if you watch opposition politics, is cooperation, working together towards reform. And as I started this evening, and it's a very uplifting sort of moment to reach. I mean, I haven't through the years had much to say that was uplifting. But potentially, if that happens and they hold together, we are now within 900 days, 800 and something, of a reformist administration taking charge in the union buildings.
Thanks for watching. Let's hand over to you, our viewers. Do you think that South Africa's opposition parties should be collaborating more closely? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And before you go, do remember that the CRA offers a range of products and services to its clients. We're currently running a 30-day free trial. So if you're interested in the work that we do, you can click on the link in the description below, where you can access all of our services. My name is David Ansara. This is the CRA. Until next time, take care.